Introducing first in the corner to my right, from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, weighing in at 215 pounds, Makowski!
He looks like he's in insane shape, Bacabella.
Yeah.
His opponent in the corner to my left, from Amityville, New York, weighing in at 205 pounds, he'll never be famous, Dan Barry!
You know, Dan Barry, his middle name is Dingle.
I will have to check a birth certificate on that, but this match, of course, Matt Makowski had many opportunities seemingly to wrestle Alex Shelley, and every single time that they were scheduled to go one-on-one, it fell through, and I think Matt Makowski has taken exception to the fact that Dan Barry got to wrestle Alex Shelley, headlining our Mills of the Gods event back in May at Taffeta in Lowell, Massachusetts. Makowski feels like it should have been him, but he was on the shelf.
Yeah, Makowski was hurt, but Matt Makowski had a lot of opportunities taken away. You know, I know this to be true. Matt Makowski is actually slated to have a IWTV championship match, you know, that was taken away from when he blew out his ACL. And that ACL wasn't just a normal ACL injury. That was something that nearly ended his career.
Well, I was going to say, typically an ACL return, you're looking at 6, maybe 9 months. Makowski out double to triple that time, but it's good to see him back in a Beyond Wrestling ring. I think that maybe by the end of this, Dan Barry could be disagreeing, but now is Makowski's time to show us why he feels he deserved that match with Alex Shelley. And if he's at the top of his game, he may still be able to earn that, as well as a shot at the IWTV Independent Wrestling World Championship.
There you go, opening up Matt Makowski, MMA star. He's had fights in Bellator. You know, this is a real legit MMA fighter, and Dan Barry, you don't want to stay on the ground. If Dan Barry wants to win this match, he's got to use his wrestling expertise.
Well, one thing, the difference between the rapport between Dan Barry and Alex Shelley, those are two longtime friends that had waited almost 20 years for that matchup. I don't know that Matt Makowski cares about Dan Barry one way or another. It would not surprise me to see him pop Dan Barry's knee out of place and put him on the shelf for 18 months, or maybe call it a career.
Matt Makowski has been waiting to get back into the ring, picking his spots. And, you know, we've seen the videos online, things like that, follow Matt Makowski on social media. But he's just picking apart Dan Barry right now. I think Dan Barry's out of his element.
Well, to Dan Barry's credit, he did accept this matchup against Matt Makowski. Dan Barry coming up short against Alex Shelley at Mills of the Gods, replay streaming at IWTV, but stick with the action here. Hashtag water, water everywhere. As right now, first time meeting, you see both of these competitors trying to jockey through position, feel each other out, but I think the longer this stays on the mat, the more it's going to favor Weapon X, Matt Makowski.
Matt Makowski trained in Lucha Libre, trained in that world of sport when it comes to professional wrestling, but always goes back to his MMA roots.
That was a big throw from Matt Makowski as the crowd is hushed here, as they're seeing Dan Barry get dismantled in front of their very eyes.
Good. Good. I softened him up this past Thursday.
Wrestling Open every Thursday, forever streaming live on IWTV from the world-famous White Eagle at 8 o'clock Eastern. I want to thank everybody for joining us for today's Beyond Wrestling Super Show, as Dan Barry just got flattened with a kick to the chest. And Matt Makowski, stoic as ever. It does not look like he's missed a step, but then again, we're still in the early moments, potentially, of this matchup. You never know when Makowski could put it away, but Barry responds with a throw of his own, Bacabella.
Dan Barry coming back, able to toss Matt Makowski over, grabbing that leg for leverage, taking him down, but every match is close to ending when you're wrestling Matt Makowski.
Dan Barry now resorting to some pro wrestling tactics, face first into that top turnbuckle, that pad there to prevent laceration, not impact.
Now Barry up and over. Single leg taking him down, but Matt Makowski rolling to the ropes, creating separation. Dan Barry, you know, I've seen him fly a couple of times.
I'm a little bit concerned about the body language of Matt Makowski. You're going to wonder if 18 months on the shelf, if he's still coming back too soon, if he's still 100%, or maybe if it's just nerves. Dan Barry not allowing him any separation on the floor, charging in, shoulder-to-shoulder contact. Both men spill on the hardwood. I think that Dan Barry got the better of that exchange, but Matt Makowski is writhing in pain.
Yeah, Matt Makowski hitting that floor hard, but Matt Makowski is a freak. Those 18 months, he wasn't sitting there eating Haagen-Dazs. He was in there, he was training 3 times a day.
Dan Barry, unorthodox senton across the chest of Matt Makowski. Only good for a 2 count. We've noted, obviously, Makowski looks to be in incredible physical shape, but even with all that working out, nothing can replace ring time. You're going to wonder what his cardio is going to be like if this match goes the distance.
That's the big question here. And talking to Matt Makowski earlier, he said that's the big test for him, is that cardio. Can he keep up? And luckily, he's wrestling Dan Barry because he can.
With Dan Barry, looks can be deceiving. Over a 2-decade career, as he may have a separated shoulder right now, but Dan Barry constantly stays in ring shape. So don't let his looks fool you. Do not judge a book by its cover, although right now, Matt Makowski, I'm sure, would love to get Dan Barry in the ring and cover him for a pin, or maybe Makowski's going to be sending a message to the locker room and everybody watching on IWTV. He's back, and just a second away from being disqualified had he not broken the hold.
All eyes on water everywhere. And Makowski knows it, and he's sending a message to every independent professional wrestler right now. Matt Makowski means business.
We've seen a lot of big returns of Beyond Wrestling this year. Megasis Megan Bayne coming back from her knee injury. Back in the winter, we saw Richard Holliday coming back this spring, and now it's Matt Makowski's back for the summer.
Dan Barry floating over.
I think the issue, Dan Barry's not able to get into that next gear. I think that if he wants to get one step ahead of Matt Makowski, he's going to have to pick up the pace, but he just keeps getting snuffed out.
Every time Dan Barry tries anything, Matt Makowski is right there.
Gotta be careful. Makowski might be looking to break his arm.
Look at him bending the fingers and the wrists.
There's so many little bones that are so delicate in the hand and in the wrist. And if Dan Barry didn't have a separated shoulder before, he might have a broken arm now.
That shoulder snapped all the way back, and you see the concern on the face of Dan Barry. He knows that this one's moments away from being over.
Dan Barry's going to be careful. Makowski might be looking for a submission, might be looking to inflict more punishment. Barry cannot defend himself, and now just driving the knee into the armpit.
Dan Barry writhing in pain in the middle of the ring. Poor guy.
Yeah, no love lost between yourself and Dan Barry, huh?
No, not at all. I don't like Dan.
You saw Dan Barry's left arm basically useless at this point. Had to get his right shoulder off the mat in order to be able to kick out. And Dan doing his damnedest to try and fight back right now.
Barry, every time he tries to throw a shot, though, he's taken right down in a body slam on the arm.
There you see the elbow drop from Makowski, hook the leg. You know, Makowski's been victorious in his last 20 matches consecutively here at Beyond Wrestling. That has to be one of the biggest winning streaks that we have ever seen. That covers a lot of ground. The Donovan Dijaks of the world, for instance.
Even Megan Bayne, who's on an impressive roll right now. But Matt Makowski lost something very important. He lost time in his career, and now he's looking to make up for it by beating Dan Barry in his return.
We've seen Dan Barry with a career resurgence over the past couple of months, especially here in Beyond Wrestling. I think there was a time, especially performing at Wrestling Open, seeing all the newcomers where some might have thought that he lost a step, but I do believe that he is on the very top of his game. He's trying to demonstrate against Matt Makowski, and I thought that forearm rattled Makowski, but Makowski just shrugged it off and responded in kind.
Makowski used to get hit in the face for a living. That's not going to hurt him. And trying to roll through for that German. Can't do it though. Barry fighting out of it. He planted him. But he can't make the cover. Barry.
That's the pro wrestling instincts of Dan Barry. Makowski might have been looking for a double leg, looking to get underneath his opponent, and instead, his momentum used against him, driven skull first into the canvas as the official issuing the account. You're going to think that if we get to a 10 count, we're going to see a draw. If either man can get to their feet first, they're going to have a decided advantage.
And the referee's counting slow enough, though, that both of these guys will get up by 2. Actually, he's up to 5 right now. Okay, I lied. But Dan Barry needs all of that time. He needs it. Look at the perspiration on the forehead.
And it's always a tell Bacabella when a wrestler needs to use the ropes in order to be able to get up. Even though Makowski got up second, I think that he's still got more gas in the tank.
Yeah, Dan Barry has taken a beating. Matt Makowski, like I said earlier, so much to prove right now. Both of these guys fighting at will. But man, Matt Makowski's laying him down.
Dan's going to be careful. I don't think he wants to go strike for strike with Makowski. But he leveled him with that clothesline. Makowski seems dazed right now. And Dan Barry cannot let this moment sink in. He has to act.
Yes, he does. Don't look to the crowd, Dan. Don't do that. Matt Makowski has knocked out 5 different opponents in his pro wrestling career.
Dan Barry trying to build up a head of steam, throwing a European uppercut with his quote-unquote good arm. We know the damage that's been done to pretty much his entire body at this point, but at least in better condition than that left arm that hangs by his side. Maybe looking for a cannonball. That's as pro wrestling as it gets. Never going to see that in the octagon.
We've seen that many times, week after week. Cover. Only a 2, though. Matt Makowski fighting out. And now Matt Makowski has to find that will.
Dan Barry checking with the official, making sure that it was only a 2 count, getting closer and closer to the finish line. Got to give Dan Barry credit. He has absolutely turned the tide back in his favor. That headbutt once again staggering Makowski on the ropes, looking for an Irish whip.
Here we go. Oh,
Whoa! Makowski basically able to float over that top rope, catch himself on the apron, but got met with a gamaguri for his trouble, kick right to the front of the face.
Wait, a what?
That's a gamaguri. That's a front face kick as opposed to a kick to the back of the skull.
That's a kick to the face. That's what I call it on the streets, brother.
Dan Barry now looking to use those ropes for some added leverage. He's got to be careful. Does he have his footing? Is the left arm going to hold?
Makowski holding onto that top rope, playing defense right now in the shadows of Gillette Stadium where there's been a lot of great defense, and he snaps that arm on the top rope.
Desperation from Dan Barry as now Makowski slingshots himself in.
Good night. If he gets this, it's over.
Dan Barry doing his best to protect his arms. You're going to wonder if Makowski's looking for the left or the right. Now it looks like he's trying to apply that cattle mutilation submission.
Oh, on the arm too. The arm, break it, Matt.
Bacabella, one thing you're going to say about this submission, it is very difficult to keep it locked in and keep it applied for a long period of time. So right now it is will versus endurance. Is Makowski forced to give up the hold but still has control of his opponent? The fans ringside coming alive for Dan Barry. He's got to be careful not to get suplexed. Trying to get over the ropes.
Oh no!
Oh, bad landing for Dan Barry.
And now Makowski right away with a cover and a... Oh, I thought it was 3. I thought that was 3, Denver.
Dan Barry lucky he didn't land on his head. Still keeping his chances alive in this matchup. Use that hashtag water everywhere. Still have our elimination match main event to come. Team Love Dog. Who knows if he even found partners as Matt Makowski now mouthing off. Maybe getting a little bit frustrated. Maybe he took Dan Barry a little bit lightly coming into this matchup.
Well, we all do. We all take Dan Barry lightly. He looks like the guy that's sacking potatoes, but he is an accomplished professional wrestler. And Matt Makowski definitely being tested in his return.
Oh, Matt Makowski now. Got to be careful if you're one of the fans ringside. I would not want to get into an argument with Matt Makowski.
So that person right there has probably never been to a wrestling show before, or else you wouldn't say anything to Matt Makowski.
There you see the perspiration flying off the chest. Dan Barry able to get one good overhand chop in, but again, I got to question the strategy. The forearms to the side of the skull of Matt Makowski. Now he's got him doubled over. Can Dan capitalize?
Uh-oh, Makowski now fighting. Oh,
God, he's like the Terminator.
He caught him in the ear. He caught him in the ear. Dan, this is your moment.
Pulls him over. Dan Barry looking to take a big risk.
Dan Barry, he knows the urgency. He understands this moment. Up to the top.
Able to connect with that Swanton bomb.
Oh. Only a count of 2. Dan Barry once again questioning the count of Bronco Lubitsch. But man, it was only 2. Matt Makowski still alive.
Dan Barry with all of his weight, all 205 pounds colliding on the chest. Matt Makowski could have a rib injury. You see him favoring his solar plexus right now. Could this be a mistake? Barry had his opponent down, instead brings him back up. Looking for a slam, looking for a suplex.
He's
Matt
looking
Makowski.
for that tombstone. That's what he's looking for. Oh, wait. He got the arm again.
Uh-oh. Might be tap out city right here. Makowski can get full application of this Kimura lock.
Barry's close to the ropes, though. Dan Barry close to the ropes. All he has to do is extend those legs.
Dan Barry, is he looking for a counter? Instead, he got the knee to the temple.
That's pro wrestling. That is pro wrestling right there. And that's why any pro wrestler can beat up an MMA fighter.
Makowski had a lot of trouble trying to apply that hold. I think that's a big tell for how much damage has been done. But that back brain kick just flattened Dan Barry. Dan Barry seeing stars, probably doesn't even know that he's at six-string barn grill right here in Foxborough, Massachusetts.
He psyched him out. He psyched him out, but Barry, he's paying more attention to the fans.
Well, that's one of the things that you got to get used to is the atmosphere here at Beyond Wrestling. Not Matt Makowski's first rodeo, but his first rodeo in nearly 2 years. You can't let the fans get into your head as Dan Barry has the fans on his side. Now looking to roll through. Pops Dan Barry up and right into the submission.
It's over. It's over. Wow.
Here's your winner by submission, Matt Makowski.
That is a bad, bad man, and he's back in professional wrestling. You know what, Denver? I gotta go number 1.
Well, you better not run into Matt Makowski. Uh-oh. He's not done. He's not done. We might need to get help out here.
You know what? He's waited a long time for that one moment in the sun. What a bad man. I feel bad for professional wrestling knowing that Matt Makowski's in those rings.
You want to talk about Becca, you want to talk about Matt Tremont. You could be looking at the next #1 contender to the Independent Wrestling Championship. A valiant effort from Dan Barry, but coming up short today against Matt Makowski in his return. Dan Barry really favoring that arm. Nothing to hold his head in shame about. He put up one hell of a fight, but Matt Makowski was the better man today.